You're listening to the Nerd to Know Media Network. Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Broadcasting from the Blanchistan Center, this is Phoenix FM.
The internet is a communications tool used the world over where people can come together to bitch about movies and share pornography with one another.
According to the Nerd Index, you should be upside down in a junior high toilet around the clock.
This is We'll do it live! Time goes in, time goes out. Never miss communication.
It's over 9,000! My name is Foxy.
The balls are in there.
Don't face me, bro! It's a trap! I'm a firing believer! Time to Hey, Charlie, wake up! Oh, God, oh, man!
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Nerd to Know Basis Show. My name is Kieran Calcone and with us, as always,
is Dara O'Connor. Ahoy.
Ahoy, ahoy, ahoy. It
How are
feels
you?
like it's been a while since we've done one of these. How are you doing?
I'm really good. Well, it's weird. I have another fantastic story to tell for anyone who's been following my Twitter, which you should, at Dara WV. You really should. And I don't mind if you at me or not. I'm not like Bryn who gets upset about it. I don't know if Bryn gets upset or not, but you should bully Bryn.
That's a fun note. Bryn gets upset about it.
No, I don't think he does. I don't think he cares about anything. But, you know, it's just fun. In my head canon, it's good to bully Bryn on Twitter, even though no one does. And don't bully people. But you know what I mean. It's all part of the gimmick.
With love.
With
All
love.
right. Well, then, obviously, I suppose we should put at the start of the show. We will be talking Spider-Man. I'm getting No Way Home stuff.
No Way Home. Yes.
We'll try and do some non-spoilery stuff. We'll put frequent spoiler warnings if we get into the meat
Listen,
of it. I'm hoping
here's the
this
thing.
goes out
Folks,
a
folks.
week after it's been out, so at least a bit of time.
Listen, hold on,
Go
Kim. Folks, if you're listening to this, the minute we start talking about Spider-Man and you haven't seen it, stop the podcast or park your car, drive into a cinema, go see it, and then come back on and listen to the podcast. Because that's what you need to do, because we are going to talk about everything in the Spider-Man movie when we get to it, because I've seen it twice now. But we're not going to talk about it just yet. But when we do, full spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, go see it. Go see it twice.
Thank you for that. And you can tell that I'm the one in charge of marketing and not Dara, because I would never in my wildest dreams say, listeners, turn this off.
Yeah, well, come back then. don't disappear forever. Don't disappear forever. Just put it on pause and come back.
I think the fact you've seen it twice is quite an endorsement. But first, we really need a name for this series. Your ongoing epic struggle with it simply going to the cinema. Volume 5.
I don't know. I call it something really clever in the show notes for a while ago. I think it's like Mystical Adventures in the Cinema or something like that. It's some clever name which I should have done research about. But anyway, yes. So this is volume 3 or 4. I think it's volume 3, is it?
It feels like volume 9.
Well, it's the same cinema. It's actually beyond a joke at this point how bad this cinema actually is. And you know what? Look, I'm going to name names because it's very obvious on Twitter. No, I won't name names, but go on my Twitter and you see me name the names. But they did reach out to me after it and kind of acknowledge how ridiculous it was. So
the plot thickens.
Yeah, they did. They offered me free cinema tickets as well. So, but here's the thing: I don't want them because it's a bad experience. But anyway, so go to Cineworld or go to The View because they're great. Just literally go to The View or Cineworld, literally, because they're great and you will not have this problem. Case in point today, when I went to Cineworld, I saw Spider-Man and none of these things happened. None of these things happened. So I'm going to go through this real quick. So me and my dad go to cinema a lot, right? It's the kind of thing that we do, right? And we always have, like, some of my earliest memories have been my dad taking me to go see Star Wars and Batman and all that kind of stuff. So cinema is a big thing with me and my dad, right? So we go all the time. It's our thing, right? And I'm like, right, we're going to see Spider-Man tonight. He goes, oh, but it's on at 11:30. I'm like, yeah, but spoilers are already coming out and I can't avoid them. I need to see it. So he's like, all right, we'll go. So we went and we showed up and you had to buy your tickets and all that kind of all that good stuff. But we arrived when we were there half an hour early, and I used to like to go 45 minutes, half an hour early, obviously to get through the checkpoints and all that kind of stuff. But when we got there was a line, a huge line of people, obviously checking the certs and all that kind of stuff, which is fine. That's not a problem, right? It's the fact that you have to have ID as well. A lot of people didn't. So
I've never had that before.
Yeah, well, this is why you don't go to the cinema. This would go to the View or go to Cineworld, where it's not ridiculous. But this cinema specifically wants you to show ID. So there's like hordes and hordes and hordes of unsocially distanced people just standing outside the cinema, which in my mind is kind of worse than not having ID, right? So that was the first intro to it, and we were there for like 20 minutes. We got in, and then there was a massive queue for food, which, look, you don't really need food in the cinema. But for me, as a business standpoint, I'm like, that's where you make most of your money. You should probably fix that, or you're not going to make any money. And a lot of people just didn't buy food because you just couldn't. The queue never stopped. The queue was there the entire runtime of the cinema. And I know because I went and checked just to see if the queue was still there, because it was that ridiculous. If anyone knows, in Blanchardstown, where the cinema is, it goes all the way down past the door, and it was even going outside towards where the Eddie Rockets is. If people know the area, that's how far this queue was. It was ridiculous, and it was like that the entire time. And I just, in pure disbelief, I was like, "Wow, the movie's over, and there's still a huge queue." So it was like that, and I'm just like, "Wow, okay." And look, all that's fine. The problem really started when the movie got going. So we went in, we got premiere seats and sitting there and all that kind of good stuff. And the cinema was packed, absolutely packed, jammered. And again,
so wait, hang on. Were they doing like the social distancing thing?
Barely.
I saw it today, and they were like,
Barely.
everyone was like 2 seats apart, you know?
Yeah, barely. So they were supposed to have 1 or 2 seats apart, but that wasn't adhered to. People were running around the cinema, maskless galore, coming and going. Which, look, is what it is. But screaming, texting, people taking pictures of themselves during the movie. Pretty much everything you could possibly think to ruin a cinema experience happened in this experience. And then the coup de grace was when the movie was over. And again, like, we would have walked out if it had been anything other than Spider-Man. Literally, like, or even The Matrix. If it had been either one of those movies, we're like, right, we're just going to watch it just because I don't want to get it spoiled, right? So I'm like, okay, we'll sit through it, and then that's it. The best part came when the movie ended. And so when the movie ends, Kane, what do? You get up, or you wait for things to go, and you walk down the stairs, and you take your food with you or whatever, and you put it in the bin, right? That's what you do.
If you're a relatively normal person, yes.
What you don't do is you don't climb over all the seats from the top and walk down all the seats and then hop the barrier. That's what happened.
Again, how many? All of them? One of them? What?
More than 20, more than 10.
Okay.
So it was a lot.
Were they inspired by the Spider-Man antics?
I have never seen this before in my life, but I saw it a lot in this specific screening. And then when we were leaving, someone had puked all over the entranceway. So that's just some of the highlights of this specific cinema in my locality. And the first 2 parts of the series were explaining how ridiculous it was to even get into the cinema, and it seems like things got progressively worse. So again, so
this is like the return of the king. This is the struggle with leaving the cinema now. The epic Tolkien journey of, like, your first story was trying to get in, your second story was being in, now it's going home. We're going to spend a half an hour with it, really decompressing.
So I'm just saying, if you have a choice, ladies and gentlemen, in my experience, until things change, go to the View or go to Cineworld, where none of these things happened. I was in Cineworld today. It was wonderful. You show your passport, you show your cert or whatever, you go up, and that's it. No puke, no running down the seats. People wear their masks coming and going. No one's screaming and shout. Well, in this movie they did, but they were cheering for parts in the movie, which is fair enough because they got really excited. That's okay. No one took pictures of themselves during the movie. Pretty much it was the complete opposite and what you would expect. Now here's where it gets interesting. The tickets for this specific cinema It's about €30, give or take, right?
For two or
in total.
Okay.
So it is rather expensive. Now, Cineworld, I have the Cineworld pass. It cost me nothing today, and I'm like, I even said this in my email to this cinema. I'm like, it's really expensive to go to your cinema, and you expect some sort of quality, and there's just no quality control. And I'm like, yeah, man, no. So, The Matrix is out next week. I already have my tickets pre-booked for Cineworld. I'm really excited. So I probably will go see it in this other cinema to take them up on their free ticket offer. But I swear, if that happens again, I'm like, yeah, no, just refund. Absolutely. And look, folks, if you're listening to this, don't be afraid to email, because you're totally well. You're not being a Karen or whatever. You're totally well within your rights. Like, I understand. I used to work in a cinema many moons ago.
Oh, actually, I never knew that about you.
I used to work in that specific cinema, which I also
the plot thickens.
Yeah, so I know how it's supposed to run. And I was just like, I even said, I said, look, things are tough with COVID and all that kind of good stuff, but there's some, this was ridiculous. Like, the first couple of bits you can kind of roll with, but when I saw The Sick, I was like, all right, this really is too much. We have crossed the point of what is acceptable. But yeah, look, and I would encourage everybody to do the same thing. If you ever have experience like this, don't be afraid to email them, or Twitter. Twitter is the best way to get a response. Always just tweet about it. But yeah, so that's the thing. And I don't think I'll be going to this cinema again. To be frank with you, it's genuinely not worth it. Anytime I go recently, since COVID, even a little bit before COVID, it wasn't great. Like, it was never a great cinema. It was always okay, even when I worked there.
Right.
But since COVID, they just dropped all quality control, and you're like, this is just terrible. This is a terrible experience. So yeah, I'm just like, you know what? The View is good. It's also €5. The View is €5 movies. So like, even if it's bad, you're like, I paid €5 for this. It's fine. Not €30.
Yeah.
Which is way too much. But anyway, that's my story, folks. So and again, I hate to come on here and be a Debbie Downer to industries that are struggling, but it's like, this is why your industry is struggling, because this is just not okay. Like,
to some degree, you're going to have that with any industry that involves being locked in with random members of the public. It's worth
absolutely. But the problem here was staffing. They had two people checking the certs outside, which, if they did a system properly, and I've actually pitched this to these guys in the email as well. Here's what you do, right? No, genuinely, I was like, look, here's how to fix it. One, and you can use this for free, cinema, who I'm not going to name. You scan your ticket, you scan your cert while you're buying your ticket. As in, you physically cannot buy a ticket without showing the pass.
Right.
That's one way to eliminate people scanning the ticket. And people are like, check an ID. If you physically can't do it, you won't be able to do it, right? And you're not going to go through that much effort. And two, pre-book food, like Starbucks, like you can at Starbucks. There you go. There's two ways which they can build out this problem, because they've created this massive overhead by being so anal retentive about checking the certs with the photo ID, where the overhead, and again, I said this in the first part of this series, it comes full circle. It's like, it's like when you say something with a vulnerability or something in the cybersecurity world, and they don't listen, then they get hacked, and you're like, you see, this is what's going to happen. They create too much of an overhead, with the point being that they actually can't wield it. There's 2 members of staff there, and then there's like 3 other members of staff to run the whole cinema.
Right.
So they can't sell their food, and they can't monitor the screens. So it's like, either you hire more staff, which you can't do because cinemas are being punished severely by government policies at the moment.
Oh, are they affected by the closing thing?
They are, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But they were punished beforehand with the reduced capacity and all that kind of stuff. So they're operating at a huge loss.
Okay.
But they're not thinking ahead. It's like, instead of trying to fill it with people who, to be fair, a lot of these lads were getting abused, which was really just not okay. Getting shouted at people, and that was just not cool. Yeah. But you should never shout at somebody in like, complain by email like a civilized person. Don't shout at some random person, because it's not their fault. They're just doing
that's a fair barometer for complaints. Yeah,
yeah.
Because, like, you can shout something in passion, but if you have to type it out and like put regards at the end, you'll think through a bit more,
And the actual people who make the decisions are going to read the email, not some random cashier who's just trying to, pay for college. Like, legitimately, like, it's not cool. Anyway, But as I said, if they put through the back end systems, they wouldn't need to have people taken away from certain things. Like, again, if the COVID thing is going to be there, put it into your back end booking system. It's not difficult to do. And there you go. That would fix a huge overhead, and also look into pre-booking the food. But again, it is what it is. And I would say, hopefully there won't be another part of this series, because I'm not going back to that cinema again. And you know what? As I was booking the tickets, I'm like, it's literally the only place we can go. There's nowhere else. I don't want to go here. And then from the get-go, I'm like, oh, we're in for a ride. But I did not think it was going to be that bad. Genuinely. I was and again, I never seen people crawl over seats from the top all the way down. It was incredible. And then also the puking. It was just like, well, there we go. So yeah, my advice, ladies and gentlemen, if you're in the locality, go to View or go to Cineworld. Do not go to.
Oh my God. I am dying to hear what you actually thought of the film at this point, because you've underhyped it to a huge extent.
Well, no, hold on. This should be a ringing endorsement, Kane. I stayed during all this because the movie was so good.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll do some non-spoilery stuff first. Obviously, for anyone who just happened to tune in and missed the epic ballad, we're talking Spider-Man No Way Home, which at the time of recording is out 2-3 days. Yes. Relatively new. Yeah. You've seen it twice. I've seen it once. Before we go into it, what were your initial expectations before seeing it?
Oh, I knew it was going to be incredible. It's Spider-Man. Oh, yeah, it's Spider-Man. Like, there's no way you can. It's very difficult to mess up a Spider-Man movie. Now they have done.
They've made a fair good effort in the last few years.
I don't know. Look, I really like the Amazing Spider-Man movies. Amazing Spider. Yeah, I actually Andrew Garfield's my favorite Spider-Man. Right.
We did actually do an episode on this 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah. No, I just think he just gets it. He just buy him a Spider-Man a lot more than like from the offset. And they actually kind of make a joke about it in the movie. But the thing about it is, when you're watching something like this, you're like, well, how can I judge it? Do I judge it as a Spider-Man movie? Do I judge it as a Marvel movie? Do I judge it as a how am I supposed to take it?
Yeah.
And for me, that was kind of the barometer that I was working off. And then I'm like, okay, it's basically Endgame for Spider-Man.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, we'll try not to give stuff away, but they're definitely doing the multiversal type stuff that the animated Spider-Man's kind of flirted with a few years ago, like,
Yeah, no, but it more has it hits the reset button on lots of things, because as I said to you, and we did talk about this, that's what Phase 4 is. Phase 4 is a reset button. They can't go any bigger without ending the movie series completely. Yeah, so they have to find a way to kind of reset the status quo, go smaller, and that's kind of what they've been doing through the TV shows, and also now through Spider-Man, kind of being like, because Spider-Man's like the heart of the MCU now, taken away from Iron Man. Yeah, and that's kind of what they're doing. But before we get into that, I do want to talk about Hawkeye real quick.
Right.
So we had again, spoilers, folks. We had crossover characters from the Netflix series really coming into the MCU now. So there's one in Spider-Man, which we'll talk about, and there's one in Hawkeye. So
yeah, and the internet's been really on fire with this one for the run-up to the Spider-Man release now.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's long enough ago to say that, like, yeah, the Kingpin has kind of briefly appeared in. We kind of talked about it anyway in a previous episode.
Yeah, but what's cool about that, Kane, is that's what I'm saying to you. These are all the smaller characters now that are coming out.
Yeah.
Look, Kingpin is a huge character, but what I mean by that is he's not Thanos.
Yeah.
He's a crime boss. And so it means when Spider-Man does actually just be Spider-Man, where he's not pulled into the Avengers, he's just being Spider-Man, which has been a criticism of Tom Holland. Right? I genuinely think that's justified, because he hasn't really been Spider-Man that much. But then again,
well, I mean, we kind of alluded to this, I think, the last time we were talking about it, which was that we have to look at the climate in which a new Spider-Man was made, like 2 years after Andrew Garfield, and like only like 6 years after Tobey Maguire.
But see, that's what's interesting about this. What's interesting about it is we have Tom Holland now, who is grown into maturity where he can actually take on Kingpin as an adult rather than as a kid.
Right.
Which is pretty cool, I have to say. So, look, I think this is a great move for the MCU. It means that I can go pretty much on forever without what, because look, it was too unwieldy. After Endgame, we all in this show were like, look, we're kind of done with the MCU because where's it going to go from here? And now what they've done is they've kind of walked a lot of it back as far as the stakes and the scales. Doctor Strange 2, that's going to be a complete reset of the MCU as far as on a cosmic level, where they're going to be able to kind of like, right, here's the new status quo, because they still haven't managed to do that yet. One thing I will say about this, I was expecting them to do that in this movie, but it makes a lot more sense. I thought they were going to do the reset in this movie.
Right.
They're not. They just reset the stakes of what Spider-Man is. Yeah.
And that is like, because to go back to my own initial kind of expectations, I was going into this going, is this a Marvel movie or is this a Sony movie? Because I remember those leaks that came out a few years ago where it was like, oh, put Dr. Octopus in, put Green Goblin in, put them all in. And you could go, oh, God. And like, this is clearly like a Marvel movie, but at the same time, you could imagine them insisting upon this multiversal stuff because, you know, again, it's the big hotness at the moment.
Well, not necessarily. Marvel have been, like, I think the multiverse thing in Spider-Man has always been teased, and it is interesting that that's the entry point. But I mean, like, we were expecting it for so long, and in WandaVision, just leaving everyone with a bad taste in their mouth by teasing us in that way, which I still haven't forgiven you, Marvel. That's not cool. Don't do that.
Oh, you mean the Quicksilvery thing?
What? No. I'm so annoyed by that. So annoyed by it. Evan Peters, like, breaking my heart, bringing him there, and he could be the Quicksilver, and then they just take him away, and you're like, but I like Evan Peters. He's great.
Well, he still can be, though. I mean, like, sure. Look who's getting into spoilers. Like, look who's in the trailers for No Way Home. Like, you know,
there you go.
There's kind of no limits at the moment. Like,
well, that's it, you know. But look, as I said, the movie itself is very, very cool. We will get to. There's just one or two things I want to touch on real quick before we jump into it proper, because we're only at the 21-minute mark. So, there was a big vulnerability cyber attack during the week, and it was crazy. So just, you know, a bit of tech news. Basically, Java's really unsafe. They had basically a vulnerability that isn't really a vulnerability. It's a feature of the language.
Right.
So basically, Java works on everything. That's great. But it was never supposed to work outside of a data center. And now it's everywhere. And basically, that's the problem. Someone figured out on a Minecraft server how to inject code. So basically,
well, you can build anything there, you know?
You can indeed, including basically if you leverage that, you put a specific string, which is like a bunch of characters. You put that into an input device, and you can basically take over that computer or server.
Right.
So it's
okay. That's distressing.
It's apocalyptic. Seriously, this is probably, you know, to put it into perspective, this is the Black Death of vulnerabilities. This is the vulnerability.
I feel like this is just going to have to become a recurring segment on the show, because it feels like I don't really keep up with the cyber industry.
Dude, it's amazing. Like, people like don't talk about this, and you're so used to hearing about, you know, certain things or whatever. But what I mean is, like, people don't realize that this is the calm before the storm. When this gets and it already is weaponized. Like, there's ransomware attacks happening I think there's 2 a second.
Seriously?
Yeah, but that's in general.
Successful ones, like?
No, not successful ones, but they still happen.
Right.
But what I mean is, like, now, and that's a low number, by the way. It probably is way higher. But with this specifically, if this isn't patched, which means fixed, it can actually cause serious problems. And one of the biggest problems it causes a botnet, which can take down the entire internet.
Oh my God.
So yeah, it's real bad, and people should be worried about it. And
you're gonna get your cyberpunk future. That's pretty good.
We're already in a cyberpunk future. It's just pretty boring. It's not a cool one. There isn't enough neon.
Yeah,
Um,
I had that slightly shallow thought of watching that episode of Hawkeye where they one of the characters like dips and jumps from 2018 to 2023, and you're like, ah, you took the shortcut, skipped all this nonsense.
oh man. But yeah, as I said, there is a lot to watch on this, watch out for. But look, as I said, it seems like most companies are taking it seriously.
Right.
But it's funny that when you watch the news, they just don't talk about it, and you're like, this is a huge deal.
I think it's because people like me, they just don't know how to communicate it in the language that you're using,
But what's interesting is, they've had over 2 years of talking about a virus, and nobody is a medical expert.
Yeah.
Who would weigh on this? Like, no one on the news who reads the news is a medical expert, but they're telling us this stuff. And I do believe that, like, they should do the same thing with computers, where it's like, this is a real thing you should watch out for. Because,
definitely. More education is much needed. Like, I think we've talked about this several times on the show.
I know, but it's getting worse. Like, what I mean is, this isn't a weakness. The thing about this isn't a weakness of Java. This is a feature of Java. Right. As in, like, it is doing exactly what it was designed to do, but it's not that nobody knew about it. Just with the company that bought Java from the developers initially were like, nah, and then they just went along with it, and then people realized, oh, we can actually leverage this and go for it. And I think it would be more interesting to see, because, like, there was a cyber attack there on the Coom, and it's like, if there was some kind of awareness, there would be more kind of like, oh, we should probably do something about this, because there is that public outcry. And that's why, it's funny. Like, I'm when I see this kind of stuff happen, I get the vibes that I got in 2019 in November and December, when people were like, there were certain streams that
it'll never happen here, that kind of thing. Like,
yeah, no, but I was watching Medicare's streams, and he was like, yeah, there's this serious thing coming from China, watch out. Right. And at the same time, in Ireland, nobody does anything, and then there you go. Like, but that's what it feels like when you see these massive vulnerabilities, and you're like, geez, someone should probably, like, there should be a bigger deal about this. Yeah, and that's why I like to kind of tell people here, because I'm like, these are the trends that are going on. And also, if you use Minecraft, upgrade your Minecraft. It's like,
that's a consideration, because Minecraft is mostly played by kids and teenagers who, correct, should be protected from lots of internet stuff and all that.
Absolutely, like, and if that's where it comes full circle, because, like, at the moment, that is one of the major attack vectors. But, like, we keep an eye on, obviously, when there are big cyber attack things, we talk about them on the show. But that's one I couldn't go without, because literally it's been my life for a week and a half, this whole thing. So I'm like, wow, man, this is a big deal. And it's just funny that, like, nobody talks about it. But there we go.
That's just it. And, like, my standard go-to thing is, what can people like me listening at home do to stay safer,
Yeah, well, the main thing was just be the same thing. Don't click links and update your stuff. And there you go.
Yeah, because they did confirm that the HSE thing happened because someone clicking a dodgy link,
Of course it did. Always does. Always happens.
I'm remotely surprised.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, it's like, this kind of stuff is always done through social engineering. It's never, like, again, like, the weakness is people. It's never the computer's fault. Computer doesn't have a conscience. It doesn't know. It just does what it. And that's the thing with Java. Like, if Java had just stayed in a data center, this would have happened. But it was bought, used the way it's not supposed to be used. Now, in hindsight, used everywhere, and everyone's like, "Oh God, what's going on?" And that's what caused the problem. It's very much the same way as the internet in general. The internet wasn't supposed to be used the way we're using it. That's why it's so unsafe. Never supposed to be used like this.
Well, what way was it supposed to be used?
It was supposed to be used in case we nuke each other or need to talk to each other.
Right.
Or, in a less dramatic way, just to send, like, communication between colleges. That was it.
Right.
Literally. That's it.
Instead of being a place where you hide from No Way Home spoilers.
Or where you shop, or where you bank, or where you hide personal data. All this kind of stuff. Because remember, everything we add on the internet is, like, built on top of 1970 and 80s technology.
That's true. We already think about that, yeah.
Like, it's held together by duct tape and prayers. And sometimes the prayers aren't answered, and sometimes the duct tape goes on fire, and that's when it happens. So,
and that's where you come in.
And that's where I come in. No, I'm usually saying put more duct tape on it before it goes on fire. Oh, no, it's on fire. Well, you're told. So there we go. Anyway, so just to go back to the Marvel fictional
universe,
away from the real scariness modern world. So yeah, this is your warning, folks. We're going to talk full on spoilers, so you can't talk to Phoenix, you can't email us. You were told full on mega spoilers. Stop the podcast, go see it, or stop the radio, go into the cinema. Maybe not the one I talked about at the beginning of the show. Go to a different cinema and watch the movie, and then come back. So there we go. Take us away, Kane.
Okay. Well, yeah, I was actually quite nervous for this one because, like you said, kind of Endgame did its own thing, but I don't like the idea of every Marvel being an Endgame type film. Whenever they bring a character like, the Rogues Gallery, they bring back into this, I feel like it's a huge risk because, like, not only could it not work in this, but you could kind of squander what had gone before a little bit. But I was very impressed with how focused this one was because, like, the previous two, Tom Holland, they had a bit of flab on them. They were a bit scattershot, even when they were great. Like, but this one was the most focused of all three, irrespective of all the kind of fan servicey things. And I was hugely impressed with this. I mean, I do think it sits in the shadow of the Spider-Verse to some extent.
I don't think so.
No, you don't? How come?
No, because I didn't like Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh, okay.
No, that's wrong. I did. I just don't like Miles Morales. You take out Miles Morales and you have a great movie.
You take out Miles Morales, you don't have a movie.
You do. Just use Gwen.
Well, Gwen is, and actually, because obviously Haley Steinfeld is Spider-Gwen as well, so there's a little overlap there.
I want Spider-Gwen. I want a Spider-Gwen movie.
You'll probably get it eventually.
Miles Morales is terrible. Terrible character. Always has been. Always has been. I don't care. At me IRL or whatever.
Miles Morales, will.
Miles Morales. Someone tell me why he's a good character. Tell me why. Anybody. Tell me why he's a good character. One person tell me why.
He's relatable.
How?
Because he's an awkward dork like
Peter Parker.
But
like
not
Peter
in like
Parker
a Revenge of the Nerds type way,
No, but hold on. He's not. How is he right? No, hold on. No, you said it. Peter Parker's also relatable. That's the whole point of Spider-Man. How specifically is Miles Morales interesting?
I haven't seen the film in a while, but like I thought he was an enjoyable character,
Like the only thing he has really, and one thing I do have to say that is interesting, and he didn't even really talk about it in the movie. Well, actually, they did kind of, but they should have went deeper with it. I really like the way Prowler is his uncle. Right.
Yeah.
And the fact that his dad's a cop and he's kind of walking that line between his uncle being the Prowler, who is a supervillain. I think that dynamic is really cool. But even in the comics, they don't touch on that.
Oh, I haven't read the comics, unfortunately.
I have. This is what I'm saying. I don't see. This is the thing, right? I used to be really bad with it's not like the comics, but then I realized that adaptation is its own thing.
Yeah, that's a losing battle there.
Well, not really. It's like it informs the character, right? But what I mean is, from what I've seen from Miles Morales, anytime he's wheeled out, it's very superficial. They don't go for it, and I haven't played the game because I'm not going to buy DLC of Miles Morales packaged at $70. Just not happening. But what I will say is, if they're able to flesh him out, and if he does, because he's going to come to the MCU, they joke about it in the movie. If it's the same again, I have no interest in seeing it. Genuinely, no interest.
But we have in this film through several interpretations of the Spider-Man universe, so it could be they'll find a way to make it work for. I mean, certainly, I think Miles is class. I like any of those Kate Bishopy type characters. who are fans who've grown up on the legends of things and they're trying to carve their own way, you know?
Yeah, sorry.
That's right.
Had a bit of a coughing attack there. It was weird. But yeah,
good.
no, I think that's I think that is cool. And that is something that they can do. But like with Spider-Gwen specifically, what's interesting about her is, one, she is her own character.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
She's specifically not just Peter Parker, but not, which is what you said Miles Morales is, which is kind of why he's so annoying. But with Gwen, she's her own person first and foremost. She just happens to be bitten by the spider. She still has the same kind of dynamic, but it's from a completely different perspective. Not only because she's a woman, but she's like, she's in a band. She kind of has that punk rock edge to her. She is actually quite funny and entertaining, and just her different approaches to even being Spider-Man is interesting. With Miles, it's like he has the mixed race family, which is a cool thing to explore. Explored a little bit in the comics, not really that much in any other media. But I think like the strongest thing which they can lean into, they just didn't. And I think they touched on it. And my fear would be, if you get a Miles movie, it's a superficial telling of retreading the first 25 issues of Ultimate Spider-Man.
Now Ultimate Spider-Man is like that deserves a full episode of its own. The Ultimate Universe is a bit of an upside down
and this
bin rolling down a hill,
But this is all I've seen from Miles Morales, even Into the Spider-Verse, which look is a good movie, but it's a good movie in spite of its source material. Like I think Miles is a cool supporting character. Like even in the Spider-Man game, he's cool, but like there needs to be a reason for him to be there. He can't just be like, "Oh, I'm in Spider-Man now." Now, if they were going to do it in such a way where Spider-Man is Peter Parker's fighting Prowler or something, or Kingpin, which is probably what they're going to do. Yeah. Fighting Kingpin, Prowler's involved, and then he saves Miles, and then they discover it kind of the way they did at the end of the Spider-Man PS4 game. That would be cool, and it would make a reason for him to be there. I think the Spider-Man game actually did a lot more justification of Miles Morales as a character than Into Spider-Verse. But sorry, that's my big rant going. But I just want
that's quite all right.
Or Spider-Man 2099. Do that.
Well, I mean, we are getting that, but sure, that's a conversation for another day.
But I want it now.
You have to wait for things. You've had 2 Marvels this week. You're full.
I'm full. And like we've had so much Marvel this year, it's crazy. Like 4 Marvel movies.
Well, we had the backlog of none in 2020, and actually, again, going back to the Hawkeye episode this week, I think that helped because Marvel has to navigate the fact that it technically exists in the year 2024.
Yeah.
So having that break, I mean, it doesn't really make a difference what year it's all in. Loki could be any year, really. His show could be in the 1970s for all that matters with continuity.
Yes.
But like it's to have a general cohesion, I think it did help to bridge that gap a little bit.
Absolutely. I think like everything kind of happens for a reason. And I think with them, like the absence made the heart grow fonder, I think, for Marvel content. And also, look, every screening I've been in for this, or you even have a look, try buy tickets, all the tickets are sold out for this movie. So it just proves that people will go to the theater if there's a good movie on. And this Spider-Man movie is probably one of the best Marvel movies ever. Not because it's technically amazing, because look, it's kind of not, but it also kind of is in lots of other ways. Like it's full on fan service. The whole movie is just fan service.
Oh, completely. We'll get into kind of the relative spoilers chronologically. I first jumped in my chair in 2 moments where first seeing the Rogers musical poster from Hawkeye.
Yeah, that was
just
cool.
Being in the background around the place.
Yeah, that was
and then
cool.
Second, when a certain Netflix MCU character turned up for a little cameo,
So there was talk at the beginning of the movie. Sorry, the beginning of this movie's PR thing.
Yeah.
That when the first trailer came out, they noticed that Charlie Cox, aka Daredevil, was in the interrogation room. Now what's interesting is when you watch Marvel trailers, they do actually lie about it and change stuff and put stuff in it that isn't actually in the movie. Like the whole Doctor Strange winking thing and one going, don't cast that spell. That's not in the movie.
And like little things like they'll change swear words around, they got the jokes in the trailers, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So obviously, could have been Charlie Cox, but that turned out to be a red herring because he's actually in the movie, but in Peter Parker's apartment. And what I love about it is not overbearing. Like there was some cheers in the cinema when that happened. Not. I'm going to use like my experience today as the control. The control experience.
For the record, I had a very nice experience at the cinema.
Are you going to name the cinema?
Was it IMC? I think.
I'll go to IMC as well. Well, that's great, man. I'm really glad you had a good experience because, like, I enjoyed the movie a lot more today.
Right.
And people cheered, but it was like a respectful kind of golf clap,
Yeah, I had a few escalating cheers. But that was kind of the first one, the Charlie Cox turning up.
Yeah, and that was cool. And I think, the fact that he's there means that Spider-Man is just going to hang out with him because they do hang out an awful lot, to be fair.
That's what I was wondering about. But in the comics, because I do have the comics run when they become friends. Like, in the comics, their ages are much closer. Like, Charlie Cox is like in his, I'm going to assume mid-30s. Like, so the dynamic would have to be reworked. But then again, like Spider-Man has gone through a string of mentor figures in form of like, Iron Man, Mysterio, Nick Fury, Doctor Strange. So maybe they could work that angle or something like that.
Yeah, plus they don't know how old he is.
That's true. Yeah.
And like now that spoilers, now that everybody forgets who he is, they could just think he's like 25 or something like that, But anyway, so what happens then is there is the obvious next appearance of obviously the whole Rogues Gallery of the almost the entire Rogues Gallery.
Don't jump too far ahead. There's a fair whack of Doctor Strange stuff in this film as well.
But
not really a spoiler, but it was incredibly well done. Having Michael Giacchino do the music, gave it a nice cohesion, and the set pieces involving Doctor Strange were on par with the Doctor Strange film. And they haven't really tried that, even though he's been in the MCU for quite a while now.
Well, it's outside of his wheelhouse. Like he doesn't have control. Like he didn't go to the mirror dimension with Thanos. He didn't go to the mirror dimension with anyone else. He just, he doesn't have any control there because it was so far above him that he's like, I can't do this,
Yeah.
But I love Doctor Strange. I think that's my favorite Marvel movie, the whole lot. Before this one, I love it. I think it gets so underrated, and it's a shame because it's brilliant. It's so good. And Doctor Strange is one of my favorite characters of the whole MCU and of Marvel in general. That I'm like, cool, man. This is great. But I was actually expecting him to be in it a lot more, and he wasn't.
Oh, I'm glad he was in it as much as he was. It's like, this is what I was worried about saying earlier. It's with films like this, they get so crowded so quickly that you could actually come out of it feeling like you've seen everyone, but you haven't spent a huge amount of time with them. You know what I mean?
It's like
they balanced it just right,
It's like an Irish wedding
where
you
kept it like a Spider-Man film,
Yeah, it's like an Irish wedding where you get to actually talk to the couple like once.
That's a really good analogy. Yeah.
So that was like, once that happened, I was like, oh great, we're kind of done here and we're able to kind of move on. But when it got going into the Spider-Man stuff, it was a little bit convoluted.
Bit convoluted. I mean, this film is shameless. Let's be honest.
The actual setup was, and he do lampshade it where he's like, he didn't call them.
Yeah. To clarify for people who may be listening who haven't seen the film and maybe don't want to, but maybe want to hear us, they may exist. Who knows?
Fair.
It's basically Spider-Man is public enemy number one. Him and his friends get unfairly refused from the college they want to go to after they graduate. And Spider-Man, you see it in the trailer, he wants to wipe his memory or the world's memory of him being Spider-Man so he can get that other shot.
Yeah.
And Doctor Strange said, why didn't you just call them up?
Here's what's weird.
As opposed to doing a multiversal DC style universe wipe, you know.
Here's what's weird about this, right? So in universe, the MCU and MIT are like interlinked.
Right.
Tony Stark gives a speech at MIT.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Mysterio was at it. Yeah.
Yeah, and he also has the funding and grants, right?
Yeah.
Could Peter not have called Pepper and been like, "Hey, Pepper, could you just, maybe just get us in there, please?"
Maybe, but like the entirety of Spider-Man Homecoming is him calling Iron Man and not being answered. So
that's fair too. Yeah.
I don't think Peter has special privilege. Like they have a line in the film about it. She's like, "I'm the most famous person in the world, but I'm still broke." Like, that's the most Spider-Man thing ever, It's just kind of like, I don't know how he hasn't got a deal worked out, because with what we've seen from Tony Stark specifically, MIT is his, basically owns it, like, and Pepper wasn't like, I'm going to say this now. Pepper comes off as the coldest what in the world after Endgame, right? What, you mean while she's grieving?
Well, okay. All right, I take it back. Because this is the second time that we've seen someone instrumental in Endgame just be screwed over. Like Sam being screwed over by not being paid or whatever.
Oh, yeah. That kind of set the precedent that superheroes are kind of like volunteer firefighters.
Yeah, and you're like...
I suppose you could blame the, what is it called? The Sokovia Accords. Like, they refuse to be agents of the government, so maybe they're just freelancers now or something like that.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Spider-Man was on Tony's side.
That's true. That's true.
And I'm like, I just like Happy's there as well. Could you not be like, listen, can you just talk to Pepper to talk to them? Like, look, the amount of money that Tony probably gave MIT, it's like Mr. Burns trying to get his son in.
Yeah.
Into was it Yale?
That's true, but at the same time, I don't like, because we
really
actually have had a lot of scandals about this in the past year. About celebrities buying their kids into colleges and that kind of stuff.
He's Spider-Man.
I know, but there's actually a line in the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie where Osborn offers to give him a job, and he says, "No, I'd rather make it on my own steam." Like, and it's basically just a way to get a dig in at Harry Osborn. But it's there, I consider that a very Spider-Man-y trait. Like, I mean, they pointed out in this film as well, where it's like, what's his name? MJ goes, "What, you decided to just change the entire universe instead of talking to me and Ned and coming up with a plan together?" Like he's kind of selfless to a fault, I don't think asking for help is very much his thing.
So let's jump ahead a little bit because we are short for time.
Are we? God.
We are, yeah. So I didn't think this would happen, but we might have to go over it a little bit. But
right.
So look, when Tobey Maguire, so Andrew Garfield shows up first.
That was when the biggest scream came in my cinema. Yeah.
Someone lost their mind completely.
Yeah.
Like in the control, he started crying, legitimately, and then he cried even harder when Tobey Maguire showed up. I'm like, wow, man, you need to like.
See, that's funny. I didn't get a big reaction off Tobey Maguire in my cinema because I'm not sure if this is just me, but I'm so used to people on YouTube editing like Tobey Maguire into like Marvel trailers and things.
Yeah.
So when he turned up, I had that slightly, what? Really? Okay.
But see, I don't know. Like, I was happy he told Maguire there because I was actually the first time I was in the cinema that I actually saw Spider-Man 1 in.
Oh.
So again, I'm kind of ashamed that was such a horrible experience, but it would have been beautiful otherwise. But Andrew Garfield, man, he's my Spider-Man. He's my live action Spider-Man because he just is. And this movie just showed what he is. He's just cool. I love the bit, in the movie where he's just like, he's just having fun with it again. He's like, "I love you guys," and they're just like, "Okay." He's like, "I'll crack your back for you," and he's it's just so funny. Like,
it's the oldest kind of trope on the internet, but like it's that Tobey Maguire is the better Peter Parker and Andrew Garfield is the better Spider-Man.
Yeah, and it's true.
And they do play that up with Holland to a huge degree. Like, they refer to each other as brothers and all that kind of stuff. My favorite bits of this movie actually were when the villains and the heroes were literally just talking about things from their own. Like, oh, I fought a gooey alien once. Like, oh, I fought an alien in space, and it gave me the buzz of like when you're watching a Comic-Con panel.
Yeah, and they're just talking about
different Star Trek shows are like trading. Like, oh, you fought that blue thing. I fought that blue thing. It felt so out of place that I found it entertaining. You know what I mean?
It felt out of place, but also like totally justified at the same time. Where they're like, I suppose if you were kind of like, if you did meet your other self, you're like, hey, so what about this? You know, like I really enjoyed when the villains were like, yeah, I fell into it. You know, when they're going through their origin stories.
Yeah,
and it's just delivered.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah,
brilliant. It's just delivered with such deadpan, where it's like, I fell into some eels. It's like, oh, I fell into a super collider, and Jamie Foxx is like, yeah, you got to be careful where you fall.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, but it's like, it reminded me of like this moment in like Avatar: The Last Airbender, where like, you know, they're trading like breakup stories. Like, oh, I broke up with my girlfriend. Oh, my girlfriend turned into the spirit of the moon and died, and the other one just goes, that's rough, man. Like, you know, they're just so removed from normal experiences that this is like normal to them. Whenever the film did that stuff, I loved it to bits, but they never lost the sincerity. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't just become a cluster fest of like crowd pleasing things, you know?
No, like there was the bit when, because Aunt May dies, and to be fair, if Aunt May didn't just die in the Spider-Man game, it would have a lot more impact than it did. I'm like, I've just seen her die like 6 months ago.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I feel like she was underserved in the previous two Spider-Man films anyway.
Yeah, she was.
I'm glad they gave her more to do in this one. Obviously, apart from that.
Yeah.
But it did feel like she was actually guiding Peter's moral compass in this.
Well, I think this is the first Spider-Man movie of the MCU.
I suppose you can make an argument for that.
What I mean is, like, he was out doing Spider-Man stuff, and he felt like Spider-Man. I have to give huge props to William Dafoe. He actually did all his own stunts.
Holy moly, that's impressive.
And he said, "I'm only coming back if you let me do all my own stunts."
That's probably why they got rid of the mask, so you could like see him doing it.
I couldn't believe it. Like the fight scenes, actually, the fight scenes in the apartment are some of my favorite parts of the whole MCU.
Yeah.
They're so visceral. Actually, the Daredevil fight scene in the hallway isn't in the MCU, so it still counts. The visceral fights that they have is just like.
Well, I thought that was like a nod to the Sam Raimi type stuff, you know.
It was more brutal than the Sam Raimi.
Yeah, like, but actually, I'm glad you brought up Willem Dafoe, because initially I found the way Alfred Molina was pitching his performance a bit jarring.
Yeah.
And then I realized it was because he's playing it right. It's just his Spider-Man movies are much more cartoony.
Yes,
it'd be a bit like if you dropped like Mr. Freeze into The Dark Knight.
See, that's
it. He was still playing it like he was in his own movie. You know what I mean?
That's what I enjoyed about it, because Doc Ock's performance is so over the top, but you're like, well, yeah, that's the universe he's from. And even with Tobey Maguire, you know, I love the line, do you have your suit, or are you still dressed in like a hip youth pastor? And I'm just that's such a good line from Andrew Garfield. And it's like, yeah, like they all kind of behaved very much the same way that you would expect them to be. Like you could drop them into. The only one who felt weird was Jamie Foxx.
I think he was overplaying his character a bit, but considering they basically had to kind of remake him from the ground up, I thought they pitched it well, like make him the comic relief.
No, like no, it wasn't even that. Like I really liked the changes that they made, but it was just kind of off because you're like, this doesn't really fit into your character. So, but he did kind of have to rebuild him from, as you said, from the ground up.
Yeah, sorry,
it's all right. And I really Dr. Connors was completely underserved as well.
Completely. I also, like, again, to go back to the score, I love that they incorporated all the scores from all the films. I got really excited because I'm not a fan of Amazing Spider-Man 2, but its soundtrack is great. And hearing a little sting of that when Electro comes back, like, you know,
that was really cool. Like when because I thought they were going to do, you know, the way he had his beats kind of in the electricity. That was cool. But look, the fact that they didn't shy away from certain things and kind of lampshaded other things. The big emotional hook was when May died. And they were all kind of talking about their big failures. Obviously, Uncle Ben being killed in the Raimi movies and then Gwen being killed. And I got choked up a bit, I'm not going to lie to you, but you know the bit when MJ was falling and Andrew Garfield saves her and he starts crying because she's like, are you all right? And you're like, wow, he got redemption for saving her and for failing to save Gwen. And I'm like, wow, they really pitched, as you said, the pitch of this, while it was weird in certain places, overall it didn't hurt anything. It was like perfect all the way through. Even the way some of it didn't feel weird, didn't feel exactly right. But then you're like, it's because they're playing characters from they're actually playing the characters as they would be in their universe that are just dropped in the MCU. And I think that's a really cool way to do it.
I'm really sorry. My daughter's wandered in. Sorry, we might just edit around this bit.
That's okay. Are you good to go, or do you want
to? Just a minute. You keep talking about the film there for a sec.
Yeah. Well, we're at time anyway, Keen. So we can hang out.
That's right. It's time to go now for him. That's
it.
Right.
Is. She's right. She's spot on. She's spot on.
Close over the door because Mom's sleeping there. So yeah, overall, last impressions before we wrap.
I think it's a must-see. It's a movie that if you haven't seen it, go out your way to see it. I think it's going to make $1 billion. I think it's just one of probably the best, most satisfying movie you can watch, even if you're not a Marvel fan. You'll have a great time. Yeah, you'll have a great time. That's
quite high praise. Yeah, I'm not quite as enamored with it as you are, but I thought it was hugely impressive, and I really liked how focused this was, and I think I'm glad they managed to keep most of the surprises. We even haven't given away most of the surprises. You know, I thought it was very well balanced, and it felt like it was a loving tribute to all 3 Spider-Man franchises. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest takeaway from it. If you're a Spider-Man fan, if you're a Marvel fan, you're going to see it, and absolutely go see it now. Go see it.
Well, then, will we wrap call time there? Yeah,
we will indeed. So,
excellent.
Guys.
So again, we'll be back hopefully with a Christmas episode next week. Let us know what kind of Christmassy things you like. Do you want our best Christmas films, our worst Christmas films, our guilty pleasures, whatever. Let us know, and we'll be back this time next week on Phoenix 92.5 FM as always. But until then, bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.